Hello everyone, welcome to the chapter on integrating literacy in a secondary mathematics classroom through multicultural literature. I am Dr. Ditika Gupta, Associate Professor at Midwestern State University, Wichita Falls, Texas. You will hear from me and my co-author, Dr. Alicia Moldovan, Assistant Professor of Fordham University in New York, about integrating literacy in a secondary mathematics through the lens of multicultural literature. This chapter is about the integration of literacy, mathematics, and culture in a secondary classroom. The very first thing is, why is that important? Problem solving in mathematics begins and ends with literacy. Hutchinson and Elderman state that reading in mathematics classroom can range from students decoding an equation in a problem to making sense of those problems. Even though the importance of literacy integration is recognized in the content areas, especially in mathematics, and there is an availability of vast amounts of children's literature, purposeful literacy integration in a mathematics classroom is not seen. It can be said that in the lower grades, especially in elementary, there may be more use of literacy strategies. However, that dwindles down as the students progress through grades. Secondary teachers rarely use books in their classrooms. National Council of Teachers of Mathematics asks for students to have opportunities, encouragement, and support for speaking, writing, reading, and listening in a mathematics classroom so that they are able to communicate and learn the mathematics. They are able to learn how to be a math student. Knowing all of this chapter is going to provide you with a sample case of integrating literacy in a secondary classroom through the use of multicultural literature. In the content of functions, the mathematical concept covered is function which is scaffolded for high school in the form of exponential functions to middle school, where they can use verbal descriptions, tables, graphs, talking about constant rate of change, discussing about the ordered pairs, and also to be able to represent a real-world situation through graphs and make interpretations. Before we begin talking about that sample case, let us hear from Dr. Moldovan about why is literacy integration important.
Literacy is essential for developing practices and strategies to communicate mathematical understanding and reasoning. Having a strong foundation of literacy-based skills in mathematics contexts can help students identify key terminology, describe procedures, and explain connections to build conceptual knowledge. Integrating children's literature into mathematics instruction can be used to foster mathematical thinking and reasoning through applications and connections to students' lives. It can celebrate mathematics as a language and show its interdisciplinary associations to other topics and applications. It can also provide students with visualizations of mathematical concepts through illustration. Student use of literacy skills in mathematics contexts can not only strengthen critical thinking, but also communicate justification and reason. Students bring to the classroom their prior knowledge, but they also bring their cultural experiences. The mathematics classroom is no different. Thus, it is important for teachers to consider creating culturally relevant mathematics tasks to promote inclusion, consider students' funds of knowledge, and develop students' cultural competence. The work of Gloria Latson-Billings with respect to culturally relevant pedagogy takes into account teaching that focuses on student learning, the skills needed to develop students' cultural competence, and the support needed to help students with their critical consciousness. In the mathematics classroom, culturally relevant pedagogy can be used to empower students. to study their own culture, as well as learn from others and develop a deeper understanding of mathematics in relation to themselves, their communities, and the world around them. Thus, students can learn of the multiplicities of identities and cultures while also being doers of mathematics. Next, we will share a sample case study with relevant standards.
So you have just heard about the literacy integration in a mathematics classroom and its importance. National Council of Teachers of Mathematics envisions mathematics in K-12 to be such in which teachers help students make, refine, and explore conjectures on the basis of evidence and use a variety of reasoning and proof to confirm and disprove their conjectures. For those things to happen, those literacy strategies are extremely crucial. We are now going to talk about a sample case lesson in which middle and high school students will be engaged in understanding of patterns, relations, and functions, and also being able to analyze the change and represent quantitative relationships. 6th to 8th grade TEKS talk about verbal descriptions, tables, graphs, equations, constant rate of change, identifying ordered pair, and graphing real-world situations and making interpretations about them. In Algebra 1, students are expected to understand linear, quadratic, and exponential functions, including the use of technology to provide a reasonable fit of data to make predictions about the real world. They have to not only graph the word problems and make reasonable interpretations, but they also have to extend that understanding to what can it lead to. The sample case lesson in this chapter starts with a multicultural book, One Grain of Rice, a mathematical folk tale. This book introduces a greedy king in an Indian setting. The sample case lesson starts with a book that is the One Grain of Rice, a mathematical folktale. It is a multicultural literature book which is based in an Indian culture. This book introduces a greedy king, Raja, who hoards food from his people every year. However, when the famine hits, he refuses to provide to his people, letting them grow hungry while he luxuriously enjoys in his palace. A clever princess, Rani, performs a good deed and as a reward asks for 1 grain of rice for 30 days to be doubled every day. Although the Raja finds this comical, he agrees to the Rani's request, which each day that 1 grain of rice is doubled and grows exponentially, leaving the Raja shocked with very little rice for himself and even to the point that he would have nothing for himself. He finally realizes his mistake and Rani agrees to give back the rice to the Raja if he promises to share it with his people and become more merciful. This story is powerful not only because it highlights an Indian folk tale, but it also creates and represents a mathematical problem that can be used to engage secondary students in a real-world aspect. Given the backdrop of India, students are able to explore the caste system, the hierarchy of that country, thus having a discussion about different cultures and backgrounds in a mathematics classroom. The idea of doubling 1 grain of rice every day and the mathematics that relates behind it can provide the platform for students to explore and engage in rich discussion. This spans over different grade levels for functions as we just discussed the different TEKS and standards for the mathematical content.
It is important to consider strategies and resources that can be used to integrate multicultural literacy with the teaching of mathematics content. Digital tools like Desmos, GeoGebra, and Online Plotter are examples of resources that can be used during mathematics instruction to connect information found in a text with visual diagrams. For example, digital tools can be used to graph points and look for trends in data, including the shape of the graph or a line of best fit. Students can work with sliders to receive immediate feedback in response to manipulated values. For instance, manipulating a coefficient in front of a variable can allow students to study a change in the direction of a graph or a change in its slope. Other resources that can be used to explore data include Tuva Labs and CODAP. While digital tools can be used as a resource to enhance student understanding of mathematics content, teaching with digital tools can also be viewed as an instructional strategy. The visual models created using digital tools can prompt teacher and student questioning. Students can use strategies found in literacy to describe their observations and engage in critical thinking while using digital tools. Connections can also be made to graphical representations based on real-world data. These connections can highlight situations around the world to increase not only cultural awareness, but also appreciation for how mathematics can be used to interpret data across different contexts. Next, we will share additional resources that can be considered when integrating literacy using multicultural books for mathematics instruction.
As you have heard from me and my co-author about the different aspects of this book, I am going to share some additional resources. The book provides links to websites and also a list of multicultural literature that can be used in a secondary classroom to integrate literacy strategies. One such example is The Spaghettis and Meatballs for All by Marlene Burns. In this book, the main characters are getting ready for a family reunion dinner with 32 families and friends arriving. As the guests arrive, each one provides their own way of arranging the tables and the chairs so that different size groups can sit together. Confusion and chaos occurs as tables, chairs, plates, glasses are continuously rearranged. Keeping this brief summary in mind, what different mathematical concepts does this book connect to? What different literacy connections can you make between the story and the mathematics concept? How would you foster discussions for your students as you engage them in this task and relate it to their cultural backgrounds? There are a lot of reflection questions at the end of this chapters for you to think about, which are again related to different books. For example, in this book, it could be area and perimeter. How do you develop that concept using the literacy strategies? The goal and purpose of this chapter is to provide you with context of integrating literacy strategies in a secondary mathematics classroom through the use of multicultural literature. So a development of culturally relevant math tasks can really help integrate all three pieces. As you work towards developing your own lessons and strategies, consider selection of a task that is purposeful and relevant, use of mathematics concepts with rigor, and also the fact that it represents the cultural diversity of your students and your classroom, which will be an added asset. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Me and Dr. Moldovan, thank you for watching it, and I hope this chapter provides the resources that you need for integrating literacy in a secondary mathematics classroom through the use of multicultural literature.